Welcome back to the Gun Collective podcast. My name is Jon Patton. As always, we've got a really, really good guest this week. We are sitting down with the man, the myth, the legend, Kevin Dixie. He is here. And before we get into our conversation, we're going to plug our sponsors, blackoutcoffee.com/TGC. Use our code TGC to get yourself a discount. If you like coffee, get some Tenacity. That's our signature blend. We would really appreciate it. Of course, you get a discount on tea and hot cocoa as well. And if you're a traveling man like I am, use the code TGC at vertex.com. They've got backpacks, they've got gun bags, they've got stuff for your vehicle to stay organized, and of course, apparel as well. TGC is the code at vertex.com. Kevin, how are you, buddy?
I'm good, man. I appreciate the kind intro, and I appreciate you having me on tonight. How are you?
I'm freaking fantastic. We've got the cool new backdrop. I'm just trying to get on your level. I love the gradient of colors you've got going across there. It looks good, man.
Oh, I appreciate that. That backdrop is no slouch itself, man. It looks really, really nice.
I'm pumped to be able to sort of start showing it off, so to speak. But I've got a lot of stuff that I want to talk to you about. Can you give like a 30-second sort of intro into who Kevin Dixie is? Because I don't know if we've ever actually had you on the podcast or not.
Not the actual podcast itself, no.
Okay, so it's very difficult to encompass everything that you're doing because you are incredibly busy. So can you tell the TGC audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, as you now know, my name is Kevin Dixie. Everybody calls me KD for obvious reasons. I am a Second Amendment activist, advocate. However, that is wrapped up into my civil rights activism. So I started off at 15 years old as kind of like this street preacher, if you will, trying to encourage people.
I like that term.
My neighborhood to do better things. I got involved in civil rights. When I took my position at the St. Louis City PD in our prisoner processing division, that's when I had the epiphany about the Second Amendment and how it gives teeth to all the civil rights and human encouragement and equity building that I was attempting to do into my peers in my neighborhood. You know, from inner city St. Louis, Missouri, the worst of the worst, grew up in the crack 90s. The typical story at this point, single mother. I was born to a 14-year-old mother, no father. So I had to figure out a lot in life for myself. So I did that, joined the PD, spent about 10 years there, 14 years total doing processing work, also doing executive protection, bodyguarding services, security, secondaries, things of that nature. Left the PD, went to a local university, kind of ran their facility for a second to help them become ICALIA certified. They decided to abandon that idea, and I decided that I had too much experience to be a professional campus security guard. And no offense to individuals that do that work. I just felt at that point in my career, I was either going to be all in or out. So I got out, pursued an education, got a couple of degrees up to a graduate degree, which was a big deal for me because neither one of my parents made it past 8th grade. So pushing to get not only an undergrad, but a graduate degree was a big deal. I did that. My father, have 2 wonderful children, a wife. I fight for civil rights, including the Second Amendment. I teach people how to use their guns in a defensive manner if that arises. So the name of our company is No Other Choice. I'll explain more about that later. And that's who I am. And I'm all over the place, from podcasts to pleasantly humbled to say it's a big deal for my family, everywhere from the street corner to the cover of Time magazine, and now sitting here with you.
Dude, I'll tell you what, I did not know how well we would get along until we spent, so for context, Kevin and I and our good friend Jared from Guns and Gadgets, we spent an entire day together at Sig Sauer in New Hampshire, and I had only had sort of drive-by interactions, smaller interactions with Kevin, and I was like, this is my people. This is my people. Like, Kevin is such a good dude, and I am so pumped to sit and chat. How the hell do you have time to eat with all the stuff that you have going on? How is that possible?
You know, I got to be honest with you. Good wife. You know,
all right.
Got a good wife, man. She's
just like, hey, eat this shit. Is that the idea?
Yeah. Well, we both now, when it comes to actually preparing the food, now I burn it up a little bit. Now I get that.
Do you?
So
all right.
I burn it up now. So no, I get in there. We have a very interesting dynamic, man. With me and my wife, we both share responsibilities. So I'll get in there and cook. She'll get in there and cook. But when it comes to me having the time to actually touch and do everything that I'm trying to do, I owe that to her for being an ultimate balance in my life and giving me the support system I need. When I think that I'm straining dad away from the kids and not being there as much, she always brings that balance back. So it's a good wife. That's how I'm able to manage it.
That's rad, man. I think that's fantastic. A lot of folks just try and do it on their own, and it gets a bit overwhelming for sure, and can put some strain on relationships. But it's good that you've had that success. So I guess I'll just kind of kick the door open. As somebody from a completely different upbringing than myself, I grew up in an area that had so the school system around here, where everybody sort of grows up, is everything from very country folk, to suburbanites, to ultra poverty, and everything in between. And I would say that that's probably different than growing up in St. Louis, especially during the 90s and the crack stuff. It wasn't like that here. So that gives me this question of what was the turning point? Like, what was the sort of spark that lit your fire for the Second Amendment in particular? Now, I know you deal in civil rights as a whole, but in particular, the Second Amendment, what lit your fire for that?
Two things. Well, three actually, and I don't want to be a downer to the audience, so I'll make this real quick. My first interaction, as far as me handling a gun, started when my friend at 13 years old came down to my house. Long story short, your buddies give you that look like, you want to come with me, and you see the looking around, you're like, yes, absolutely, whatever this is,
Yeah,
I want in, right?
I'm in.
We went up, we shot his parents' gun. They had a little Tomcat, and we shot it. We had to figure it out what we were doing. It took forever. Anywho, we shot it off the back porch a couple of times. My neighborhood police don't respond to gunshots, so it wasn't a big deal, right? We shoot it off the porch a couple of times, and I got this adrenaline in me. And at first, I thought it was the fact that I liked the mechanical aspect, the boom power of the firearm, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe a little bit of the fact we did something naughty we didn't have any business doing. I mean, we took the shell cases and put them back in the ammo box, dude. Like, we really had no idea what we were doing. And when that happened, I thought that it was all the naughtiness and excitement of the gun that had me excited, but it wasn't. I had a very troubled childhood, including child molestation, foster care, the whole 9 yards. So I wanted to kill myself. Right? Okay. That was the fantasy with the gun, was that I wanted to commit suicide. Attempted to do
what age? What age was this happening?
13.
At 13, 13, you had decided that you wanted to commit suicide.
Correct.
Wow.
A lot of stuff going on. And when you look, and it's really interesting. I find it fascinating to study it now. When you look at even where we've come with mental health from 30 years ago, look how far we've come, even talking about it, right? So then nobody could tell me what was going on. And I tried to talk to therapists, and they did diagnose me with clinical depression at one point, but I didn't know. I just knew life sucked. It was hard. Everything that I had been through, especially when you violate the sanity of children, which is why I don't play those games now. That was like the biggest push. Growing up in violence, growing up with a lot of stuff, and then having a grown man violate my body from 4 to 6 years old. I had no control over that. It leaves a lot of scars. So I wanted to kill myself. And then I tried again at 15. Thought I was over, but tried again at 15. And when the second time it was with a lever action gun, and I didn't know how to work it. I didn't know how to crank the thing all the way up. I kept short stroking it. I didn't know, and I'm glad I didn't know. Right? It's kind of cool. I didn't know.
There is massive irony in wanting to kill yourself and not knowing how to use the tool to do it. That's massive irony.
Correct, man. It was very interesting. But after that, and I already had an awakening about wanting to do better, and I wanted to change the narrative of a lot of things, including what I saw. But when it comes to the Second Amendment, I realized that in order to take total control of my life, I said, that thing that I was going to use to take my life, I'm going to reverse that, grab control of it, and I'm going to teach people how to save lives with it. That's what I wanted to do. I said that once I was the problem, but I'm just using it in reference. I was the problem. However, I wanted to use that tool to end the life. But now what we're going to do is we're going to show people how to defend and protect life with it. So we're going to take control of it, grab it, and turn it on its head. At least the ill intent that I had. It wasn't the gun's fault at all.
So how old were you? How old were you when that happened?
15, pushing on 16, when I wanted to start talking to my friends about responsibility with guns.
So you went from that's a pretty harsh 180 to going from ultra depressed, using that or attempting to use that lever action to take your own life, and then realizing, sort of having that epiphany, so to speak, that you wanted to not only use this for good, but also help others to do the same. Is that right?
Correct.
Wow.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And then when I joined the PD, I was standing there and I was talking to a patrolman. We were talking about something. There's a few of us standing around, and by this time, I'm fully aware what the Second Amendment is at this point. Like the Second Amendment itself, I'm fully aware of it. I've never been anti-gun, but never have I been anti-gun. Just naturally, I wasn't anti-gun, but I also wasn't a gun rights activist. Does that make sense? It was like, okay, Second Amendment,
I
great,
get it.
cool thing. But I'm standing there, and we start talking about the Constitution, and I'm all about those conversations, and because I like the way that civil rights blends in with it. And then all of a sudden, the Second Amendment came up, and whatever happened during that conversation, that's when I had my epiphany. I'm like, holy, if I don't, not only just teaching people how to be safe with the gun and respecting it, that I wanted to do since I was 16, and understanding that we can do way better things with it. I'm like, man, you know what? What's the point of me helping you understand and fight for equality, and then helping you build equity in your life? So, for example, we help you get to an even playing field. We make sure that the system is structured right for you, and you go spend 10 years in school or whatever, and you want to become a financial investor. Great. And you want to build great things for your family and break generational curses. Great. That's what we're here to help you do. And then you spend 10, 20, 30 years building that. And I knock on your door, and in 30 seconds, I can take everything from you. Or I can rob you at the store. You can't defend yourself. And in 3 seconds, everything's gone. So I realized immediately, like, dude, all these rights you're talking about, that's great. Continue to do that. But all you're doing is creating rich victims. All you're doing is creating people that have equity things to lose with no way to protect them, if you don't truly make sure that you fight and protect not just people learning guns, but protect the Second Amendment with these things. Because if you don't, you're creating rich, equitable victims. That's it. So I changed that day, and I started making sure that I fought and protected the Second Amendment much beyond just educating people about guns.
So that sort of brings me to the idea of, having grown up in St. Louis, and from a troubled background, for one, looking for one word to try and summarize all of that struggle. Why pick up like training and all that sort of stuff? Is the idea to, do you think it's let me rewind a little bit. Is it sort of this self-fulfilling thing where you get this feeling of helping other people lift up themselves because you didn't necessarily have people to do that for you when you were young or when you were coming up? Is that the idea? Because I know you do a lot of work with some really young kids in schools and churches and camps and all that sort of stuff. So is the idea to empower these people, and then you get that satisfaction out of it as well? Is that part of it?
It all started. It is a certain part of it to an extent. It all started because I wanted to, me helping people empower their lives allowed me to stay focused on them and not look at myself, because I wanted to avoid myself because of all the demons that I had.
So sort of a distraction at that point.
In a way, yeah, in a positive one, right? Because people absolutely get to benefit from it. And I got to benefit from it because it kept me distracted for a while. But what ultimately wound up happening is my community outreach with children is because, you know what, man, we can talk and complain, or we can try to make a change. And I'm not going to save millions of children. If I can save one, which I've done, I can absolutely call it a success, right? But being there for someone that speaks their language, not somebody saying, hey, I'm just going to teach you how to be better, and showing up in a Brooks Brother cheap deacon suit, that they only see on Sundays at church, but actually a guy that can say, yeah. And I had kids tell me all the time, man, like, you don't look like or even speak like you come from where we come from. And then when I let them know, they're like, okay, you can actually relate. But that goes from children all the way up through adults, right? What people don't even understand, even with the firearms community, there are about 6 or 7 people that I mentored behind the scenes. I will never say it, but these were young men at one point in time that didn't know how to get their foot in the door, didn't know which way was going to go left, and I steered them toward being gun advocates, right? So they're taking care of their families. They're doing great things, but they're also into the firearms as well. And in other areas, I got people that are bankers now. Literally, I got people that are studying to become lawyers. We got young men. We put 120 dads back into the household with their kids. So it's a lot of different avenues
Wow.
outside of guns being touched. But that's what I get satisfaction from doing that, because it's how we change things, and we don't need a politician lying and saying that we can get it done. We just need resources, and we can go out and give those resources to people, help them change their life. My satisfaction at the end of it is that I'm creating people that are building communities versus people that are tearing them down.
You know, I find that, at least from my perspective, a lot of politicians, the term that gets tossed around a lot is sort of this idea of grifting, and they're just in it for the turn and burn, so to speak. Is that something that you witnessed as you were, sort of growing up and watching yourself kind of evolve into this advocate and mentor? Did you see this idea of a politician that could come in? They say they can come in and save a neighborhood, a town, a city, and just have them disappear overnight with doing virtually nothing. Has that been a common occurrence?
Oh man, firsthand experience. So it's funny, different things make us all who we are. And one of the things, since I didn't have a dad, is I had a mistrust of men, right?
That
Like
makes
if you
sense.
listen to my story, it was a man that violated, my physical self, and then it was a
Right.
man that wasn't there to protect me. So I had an issue with men that were authority figures anyway. So when I first learned of this person that I now know to be a politician coming to my neighborhood, I didn't keep track of it, but I'm like, I didn't see him often. But when they would show up and they would have like the block party and everybody would be around and they would stand up on Mrs. Johnson's porch, or you see them at the community center and they're giving away free hot dogs. So all the kids show up, right? And we get there and you're telling me, I'll tell you what, in this amount of time, this neighborhood is going to look totally different. We're going to, because I grew up in a food desert, right? And so it's going to be different. We're going to have grocery stores. There's still not a grocery store in my neighborhood to this day, and that was 30 some odd years ago. But
Wow.
we're gonna raise property value. Didn't know what property value was at the time, but what I did understand he was saying is the houses are gonna look better, right? And it's gonna be safer. I walked through 7 gang sets to get to my school bus every day. 7, count them. I
7?
used to have to change clothes as I walked, right? So I'm like, all right, I hear you talking, and then they would come and they would talk, and then all the elders in the neighborhood would be like, yeah, and it's gonna change, and we can't wait. And I'm like, hey, Mrs. Johnson, I respect you, ma'am. And I've always been a respectable kid, even when I was doing wrong. I always respected my elders. Like I started asking them, can you please explain to me, because I don't know. Can you please explain to me when the thing is going to happen? Because listening to you, this isn't the first time you've heard it. You've been heard it since I was born, right? So when is it going to happen? Who are these people? So then I started getting educated from various individuals about what politicians were. And then I came to understand that the Democratic Party, which was the one that I grew up under, that was going to be the party that was going to come save everything and change everything. And so then I started asking the questions once again, how long has this been happening? And then I started getting my answers. And I'm like, so it's never going to happen, because they've apparently been saying this for years and decades and decades. And then I also started asking, like, well, who are the other people?
Sure.
Right. And like, who are these other folks? And because we didn't have social media, I had to ask, right? We could read books, but I wanted to know. And I'm like, hey, who are these other people? I'm like, well, that's a lot of people in my neighborhood said, well, those are the racist, that's the racist Republicans. I'm like, okay. And one of the first times they brought they up, they was like, hey, you know about the NRA? I said, I've heard it before. I don't really know what it is. So like, well, the NRA is the KKK, and they're Republicans, and our Republicans are racist. So I'm like, so we either got the choice of the people that keep lying, saying they're going to do something and never do it, but they keep asking us to vote for us. And I'm like, and this is me as a child. I'm like, but voting seems to be a currency. So if I'm giving them my vote, I'm giving them a currency to win a position, right? Like a competition. This is how I'm asking the questions out loud as a 15, 16-year-old kid. And they get to win, and then they get to stay in office. Don't we pay them? Are they paid? Like, yeah, they get a salary. Okay, cool. So they get paid, but then the other people won't come help us at all because they don't like us. Is that what you're telling me? They're like, yeah. And so that's how I started processing the political landscape. So yes, I have known politicians do one or two things in my lifetime: show up and lie, or scrutinize me from a screen and never show up at all.
Wow.
All I've ever seen.
You know, I remember growing up with, in particular, my second grade teacher, Miss Mobile, was from Georgia, if I remember correctly. She never called it a pen; it was always a pen. And Miss Mobley, she she had this this thing where it was sort of this that's not us thing. So I was in school during I believe it was 92 election, Bush Senior versus Clinton, and we had a mock election, and I remember I didn't understand anything about voting at the time. You're in second grade, what do you know? And she gave me a bunch of shit for not mock voting for Bill Clinton because he was the Democrat. And my parents at the time, I was like, okay, well, they're Republican, I'll vote Republican. I don't know what the hell I'm talking. I don't know anything. And I remember her taking this sort of approach with me, like, no, you made the wrong choice, sort of indoctrinating me, or attempting to indoctrinate me at a young age, where it was this sort of, that's not us, that's not our people. And I never understood it until I got much older, where this this sort of mentality that has just perforated public education and cities in particular, which is really interesting. And I think it's this weird thing where it's like it's almost like standoffish approach of, I don't want to learn more. I have made one decision that somebody else likely filled me in on and said, okay, that's my party. I will never deviate because it's too hard to bounce around. Is that something that you saw in St. Louis?
Yeah, look. I like to tell people, and I had this conversation with a couple of politicians some years ago. I was like, look, let me tell you something. No choice of my own. In my community, you were born Democrat, flat out. It's the way it was.
That's just fascinating. It's fascinating.
This is what you do. This is how we do it. There's not an option. There, so much so, before that, it wasn't even about party lines. It's like, these are the people you're just told, right?
Right. And this is who you vote for. You do not vote for the other guy because they're bad.
Period. And I remember one of my first big issues. First big one. I remember being I was at Gateway High School, and this was a magnet school. And this school at the time, when it was revamped, was supposed to be for children that were, let's just say, intellectually advanced, right? This magnet school was supposed to be focused on that. I applied for the school, was accepted. So the kids in this school are known to be a little mouthy. We're a little vocal, and we challenge stuff because we are the brains, right? So we're here. And I remember them rolling out the TV, and I'm looking at the screen, and I never forget when I heard somebody call me a super predator.
What the hell does that mean? what the hell is a super predator?
I know those to be that's a Clinton, right? Now, going back to my neighborhood, I was told that's who I vote for. But why would I vote for somebody who just called me a super predator? Neighborhood, I was everything they were talking about. I was the problem. I'm a high school age, young adult, black male, grew up in the inner city, and the people you're telling me to vote for just stood on national television. Now, this is back when you had the TVs you rolled out on the cart.
Yeah, I remember
stood
that.
Up on national television and called me a super predator, and then said that you got to get me under control. Really? It's funny because going back, I've never seen you here. I see you now. Once again, I see another politician scrutinizing me from a screen that I've never met, that's never done anything for me. So yeah, we absolutely, there wasn't even a choice. This is what you're going to do.
Wow. So what's stopping you from being a politician exactly?
All right. So here's that.
I mean, you seem to have your shit together and have a pretty level-headed approach.
I believe I am politically homeless. Now that leads to why I'm not. I am politically homeless. So because I'm politically homeless, because I believe in policy. Me personally, be honest with you, I would say, hey, John, you know what? You got an idea? I don't need to know if you're conservative, Democrat, Libertarian. I don't care. Write your idea down. We're going to vote for you based off what you said you're going to do, right? I don't even need to know what side you go with. I just want to know what you plan on doing for the American people, starting with your constituents, because those are the most important people to you. That's one. And what I've realized is the Conservative Party, because I've been asked literally by former White House staff to run for office, and they will back and run my campaigns. That's literally happened.
I believe it.
And I'm like, yeah, but here's the problem. I am not a conservative, nor am I a Democrat. Okay. I am a person that sees things right and wrong. So if I run and I say, okay, I have more conservative values, which if you look at how I'm structured naturally, the values that should exist in conservatism, not Republican Party, that's different. In conservatism, I hold a lot of those values: faith, family, work hard, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? But then I also challenge some of the things that that party does a lot. So they're not going to 100% back me because everybody wants tribalism. So if I say,
Yeah,
hey,
they really. I have compared the sort of news broadcasting about politics these days to sports casting. You know, ESPN has virtually died because of social media, with the exception of like Stephen A. Smith and guys like that. You know, the big pundits. But I believe that political commentary has become sports. It's us versus them, Republicans versus Democrats,
yep,
us good, them bad. It doesn't matter who's saying what. It's us good, them bad, always.
yep, and even the Democratic Party, like first of all, they're don't even get me started with the dude that's running the country right now or whatever's happening. However,
we'll put running in air quotes.
Running, yeah, air quotes. They're absolutely. I think they are socially, and not from just the federal level. I know some grassroots people that are really, really awesome people that happen to be Democrat, but they are still good people. They want better for their community. We might disagree on some things, but they do have a good heart. But the one thing I've noticed with them is we will get together, we'll do stuff for children, we'll get all this work done. But there's two reasons that keeps me separated from them. Two things. One is their addiction to victimhood, and I don't do well with victimhood. I'm okay with addressing real issues and dealing with those real issues and real obstacles and how they got there. I'm not going to avoid something because somebody's like, pull yourself up out of bootstrap. Nah, you put the boulder there. You need to help me move this damn thing out the way. So I'm with that. And then there's the guns, right? Because I'm pro-gun. A lot of people on the left that said we will absolutely help you get to where you need to be. We would love to see you in political office. However, we can't back you as long as you are pro-gun, right? So dude, I would run.
That right there is just ridiculous. That you embody what they need as a party, but because of one thing that they have, the hill they've decided to die on as a party is guns, and that's a big part of your life and how you survived. But somehow that's the problem. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. So that's why you've decided not to run, is basically because neither party you feel will back you. What about running Libertarian or something like that? Is that an option for you?
Independent would be the only way to go, but then there's the for me, and then there's the issue with that. And maybe I'm making excuse. Now this is maybe where I'm jumping off a cliff of excuses.
All right, let's hear it.
I'm trying to use what I have available to me. So even with, and I know we're going to talk about later on, even with my community efforts about trying to raise money from the public, for example, I've had this GoFundMe up for the nonprofit work, even that I mentioned parts of it, the dads, the kids, working with people. I think we have a goal of 75,000 still set on that GoFundMe. It's been up for about 7 years and we only got $7,000.
You say seven? Like
$7,000 over years. We didn't gain that in a month or 2 months or even a year. In years. And so a lot of the audience that I reach, a lot of pro-gun, some aren't so pro-gun, right? But both audiences I talk to, I would have to depend on people to really get behind me if parties aren't. And I'm like, guys, I'm out here trying to save lives, and we've shown that we've saved lives. Hell, I've even to this day, there have been people that have been involved in very publicized shootings outside of just working with them about their human side. There have been students of mine that have been on national headlines and in self-defense shootings, and I'm the one that trained them. I just don't say anything, right? And so when I look at that from the gun side, I'm doing it, right? I'm actually putting Americans out there that are absolutely good, unfortunately, at doing what we have to do in these unfortunate times. I fight for the Second Amendment. I stand up for civil rights. I challenge everything. Nobody can buy me. I stand by the American people, and I also chastise them when they need to. But I'm always going to be honest with you, and I'm always going to show up. And I'll show up in a room full of people that don't like me because I'm there for the conversation. I do all the things, show the pictures of the kids, all the community outreach. I can't even get my hell, even my Second Amendment people, $7,000 in 7 years for a guy that's showing you the work.
That's not
Like, I
great.
mean, it's kind of disheartening.
It's not great. First off, I send me that link. I'm gonna put $1,000 in there as soon as we hang up.
Oh, well, thank you for that.
Yeah, yeah. I think what you're doing is important. But we'll again, we're gonna dig into that. One of the things I want to, we talked about a little bit about social media, and you said you didn't talk about your students that were involved in these sort of higher profile self-defense scenarios. Why not? Why
Well,
not
one,
talk
to
about it?
respect them, right? So I know
So do you
that,
feel like it's taking away from them if you claim some level of credit? Is that the idea?
well, one, it's multifaceted, right? One, whenever, and this is coming from a guy that put people in cages, right? You have to be very careful about how soon you start speaking about stuff. There's a process for things to go through, a legal process, right? So I might get word right after it happens, but I am treating myself like a therapist in that moment. I'm not, but as far as confidentiality, this is just me and you talking. This
Sure.
is not everybody's business.
Okay.
Because of the legal ramifications. I get on social media 3 days later and say and instead of or, and all of a sudden the prosecuting attorney is having a great time with you, right?
Right.
So we don't want to do that. Two, it's not. I am doing the knowledge transfer, but it takes you to commit the action, right? So it's not my credit to take from that angle. It is your credit, and I don't want to look like the guy that every time my student gets into a situation, I'm the first one to jump up like, yeah, I'm the bomb.com. Come train with me. I don't want that interpretation. The only reason I even bring it up in this conversation is because I'm clearly giving people what they need to save their lives in more than one capacity, and it will be nice to receive some support. That's about it. But yeah, I don't want to do that. And then third, you know what, man? It's not. I don't want it to ever look like to the populace that we are still trying to win over, that we're still trying to educate, that we still want to sit down, have a cup of coffee with or a cigar with, and try to get them to see our side of things. I don't want them to ever look at us like we celebrate that. Because
I
it's
understand
not
that.
celebratory. It's unfortunate. So I don't want to come off as the guy that's training people like, I'm waiting on another one. Right? Let's another notch in the belt. No. We don't want to put that kind of energy in there.
So let me challenge you a little bit,
Sure.
because I want to see your, not just your business grow, but your sort of program, your mentality grow. I would challenge you by saying that it's more, if you come at it more from the aspect of I'm helping to save lives, as opposed to this person may have shot and killed another person. I think that looks far, far more positive and less celebratory than an aspect of look what we did. It's we saved a life today because we educated somebody on how to protect themselves. I think you may, maybe I'm full of shit. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm here to listen.
I think that could be a really interesting angle to try. Because I believe in the things that you're doing, and I want to see them grow. One of the other things I wanted to talk to you about is something that's happened, I would say, probably in the last 5 years ish. So I started in the gun industry 10 years ago now, and I started at a shop in Amish country. So there were not a lot of black folk in Amish country. It's just not a thing. It's just not. I would almost pay money to see a black Amishman, because hearing Pennsylvania Dutch come out of a black Amishman's mouth would make my life better. So over the last, like I said, about 5 years, I have seen this monstrous spike in the black community, not only accepting guns, but advocating for them. And then to follow that, this big rise within the, since the pandemic, big rise in black Second Amendment, pro-gun social media influencers. I had never, the whole time I was coming up, it was there was, a few guys out there hustling, but it wasn't like it is now. What the hell happened to turn that dial? Because really, from what you're telling me, you've been an advocate coming up for, decades now.
Mhm.
What happened?
Well, I'm a person that always pays homage to Lineage. So we have to first thank the Reverend Ken Blanchard, who's been pushing for black men with guns since the 80s. He's been doing this for forever. He's a guy that I studied and read up on. He didn't have the tools and the access that we have now, which is why a lot of people don't know who he is. And obviously he's a granddad now, so he's still doing his thing, but he had to go off and live other parts of his life after making such a sacrifice.
He's written a few books,
military vets, and with the CIA, like Ken Blanchard's done everything. Like,
okay,
this is not a dude I would still to this day want to meet in a dark alley and have a fight with. Just not, right? And I wouldn't volunteer for it. But I think a couple of things happened. One, we had social issues arise, right? I think the pandemic helped push it. I think that all the negative, and this is not a good reason, but it is a reason, when we had Trump running for his first term and all the reports of the rise of white terrorism and et cetera, there was a fear factor that got people out to buy guns. And then there was also the third part. There were people that were relatable to a lot of the people that wanted to get into it. So I'll pay respect in no particular order, but let's just be honest with it. First guy that gave a lot of people the courage to get in front of a camera would be a gentleman outside of Ken Blanchard, would be a gentleman by the name of Coleon the War, or Collins, whatever name he wanted, however you want his name pronounced today. I don't know, he's weird. But he came out and showed his face and kind of kicked down the door, if you will, to say, look, the optics are, I can do it. And then we had the Maj Toure. We can't give enough credit to Black Guns Matter and what they've done across this country to get so many Black people educated about guns, from free classes in all 50 states multiple times to the information, the interviews, so forth and so on. I can't give the brother Maj Toure enough respect. And then I have to also mention Argo J. He's been a little bit quiet lately, but Argo J was in that mix too, really pushing and educating people and coming from it from a different perspective, an educator by trade. So the way he conveys information is absolutely phenomenal. And then there was me. And, I think the four of us, and I often tell people, like, even when I was coming up and the firestorm for me was happening, I had all those brothers at the same time embrace me, from Ken Blanchard, Noir. If you looked on NRA TV, it was damn near like I worked there. I was there all the time. All right. Always doing all kind of things. So I think that was a big push too. That would be the third reason, that we showed that you can do this. And then as things are, you can go to music, to all forms of entertainment or whatever, they grow. You get 2 or 3, and then all of a sudden you get 5 or 6, and then all of a sudden you get 10 or 12, and then this thing grew. And so now it is not abnormal anymore, which is what we wanted. That was the goal.
Right. Yeah, that's the ideal turnout. Yeah.
Yeah. And so some of the kids we want to reel in and get them to do it a little bit better. But at the same time, I love the attitude. I love the gumption. I love the drive. I love their new approach to it. Right, younger generation, they want to see different things, and different things are bringing them in. And so now, man, I got to be honest with you, John. It does my heart proud to sit back and be like, wow. I'm grateful. I am grateful to say that I am a small part of this new era, right? That we can see this, and now it's about utilizing it.
It's almost like, and this transcends race or anything like that. It's almost like, the select group of guys that you mentioned sort of gave permission through presence to others, like Black folk and people that were on the edge or maybe unsure of guns. You guys gave permission to not only enjoy guns, but become an advocate for guns as well, which is freaking awesome. I think it's been kind of fascinating for me because, you mentioned Maj. Maj is from, he's from an hour from me. Mm-hmm. And he can reach people that I just never, they'll take one look at me, wall is up, right? Like, I am a stereotype of an older generation of gun owners. But when yourself or Maj or Collins or any of these, or Jay come around, it's like, oh, that's me. And it's arguably, it's a more Democratic Party approach of representation that has given more people permission to become a part of the gun community. Would you agree with that, or am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong, and it's absolutely a tool that we use for positive, right? Because relatability is a thing.
Sure.
It's just a thing. So we also have to take an opportunity, which is something I harp on often. We have to take the opportunity to, while we have people's attention, to also break stereotypes that even they believe, right? So it's not just you, it's also stereotypes against themselves. For example, when they first got into it, well, black people don't own quality guns, and this is coming from black folks. We don't like, oh, I'm gonna go buy the thing that costs $300 because we don't get the thing that costs $800, And here I am sitting talking to you with a Mark 18 sitting on the wall. Like, what are you talking about? Like, we can absolutely have whatever we want. So, but it was, people didn't know, and because before they were being educated, they were like, everybody knew the term Glock, right? And Glocks are great guns, don't get me wrong, but it was like very limited to what they knew, and it wasn't cool to be knowledgeable about the guns. That wasn't a cool thing. So what do you mean you're an instructor? What do you mean you teach people? What are you teaching them? All right. So it was breaking the stereotype around what we can buy, what we can own, the fact that we can really be professional with it, you can be educated on it. And for a lot of kids, especially ones that come from the really, really harshest environments, do you mean to tell me that we can carry a gun every day and it doesn't mean we are out trying to kill people? Because all they've seen is people use guns in a negative manner, right?
Sure. So you're sort of redefining those neural pathways, arguably, of what is negative and what is positive and what is neutral in their minds. That's kind of interesting, honestly.
Yeah, we have to, and introduce them to other people too. And that's another thing. Like, a lot of people want to believe that a group is a monolith. So all white dudes with beards think alike, all black bald head dudes with beards think alike. Like, it's not the case, right? So a part of my job has always been to not be selfish. I love to introduce people to other people in general, but I don't mind introducing my audience to individuals that I think are phenomenal instructors. And a lot of people are like, well, why would you introduce them to your competition? Don't even get me started on that. But at the same time, they're going to convey something. There could be a guy that I have a lot of respect for, Body by O. He's a firearms instructor, military veteran. Follow through Buck Doyle, another guy, a mentor of mine, has given me a lot of great knowledge. Just his presence sometimes inspires me. He's been there, done that. Like those two gentlemen, for an example, are military vets, right? And so my own son wants to go to the service, right? People laugh at him because he wants to go to the Air Force, but he still wants to go to the military. But as that's happening, I now have outlets for him to talk to. I can't speak to him like that, right? Sure. So there are other young kids that might want to go to the military. Well, why not get them educated on guns the right way and introduce them to military veterans at the same time? So now they're clinching to you because they're thirsting for this information, and you're a one source fix. So I want everybody to work together to be able to grab people that are new and the ones that are old and they have an outdated mentality, and bring them all to the same pool so we can all drink from this fountain of Second Amendment youth, if you will.
The phrase that I like to use that also represents that is all boats rise in the tide. And the idea that there is no one solution is something that in my minimal firearms training has been very, very, very positive for me. Is I try to take knowledge from this person, that person, instructor, non-instructor. But if we collectively grow, then we all collectively become better, which is kind of ideal, I think. So I want to get into your efforts to grow the community. You said you only raised $7,000, which like hurts my freaking soul, because the amount of corporate people that could have thrown money at that to help you hit that goal is numerous. like numerous brands could have lifted that up, and it pisses me off that they haven't. So what is that $75,000 supposed to be for? What's the idea with that?
So it's changed. So now there's a different philosophy behind it, and we actually need to increase the number on the GoFundMe. However, what we're working on here,
$2 million.
No, I'm not too far off. But hey, we can. People raise that in overnight for certain efforts. However, we're starting when you go back to my community outreach and then my love for the Second Amendment at the same time, right? So I wanted to have a place where we can do both, and we're calling it Greenwood after the 1921 Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre. And the tagline to the property is rebuilding what was lost. And it's all under the umbrella, the nonprofit umbrella, may I add, for people considering helping out, the nonprofit umbrella of aiming for the truth. And aiming for the truth general philosophy is we are not going to blame, hell, we're not even going to blame politicians. We're not going to blame bricks, bats, cars, what our mom did to us, anything like that. We are going to aim for the truth that is causing a human machine not to be efficient and to be violent. And we're going to fix it. And that's why I go out and do the various things that I do. So the Greenwood Project is a way to bring those two things together. Right now, guns are a taboo thing. All right. It's like, oh, if I want to learn how to read and write, I can't do that from anybody that's associated with guns. Like guns are this, like, gun people are like this different section of America. And that's not true. Gun people are there. We are literally the person bagging your groceries at the store. We're the person that's, greeting you at the hotel. We are everyday people wrapped up in everyday life, but we are viewed as individuals that are separate, and we live separate for some reason. I don't know what it's about, but it's the way that it's marketed. So what Greenwood is doing is think about it like this. Half of the property, which we already own, we do have, half of the property that's 45 minutes south of Atlanta, by the way, is meant for the Second Amendment. So that's firearms training, family firearms training, elevated medical training, all those things, all the things that we enjoy, we love, force on force, put them all in one big bubble. That's half the property. The other half of the property is meant to introduce children and adults alike to things that we should be doing. So we're going to have a small farm. Won't be a big one, but we're going to teach people about farming. We are going to teach people about agriculture. We are going to give people the tools that they need as far as reading and writing, financial literacy, job interview skills. And that includes how to write a resume, how to present yourself when you show up. That is going to include all the things that help you be a human being. We're going to reintroduce civics classes, which is something that we should have never got rid of in the first place. We're going to bring those back. And we're also going to allow this land to be used by anybody else that just needs space to conduct human enrichment. We're going to do all the Boy Scout type of things. So we'll have people out there teaching the kids bow and arrow. Wow. We'll get them back with nature, how to filter their water. We're doing a dad's camp. We're also going to camp with children and families. But one of the big things we're going to highlight is the dad's camp. So fathers or father figures are able to come out and be around amongst other men as we camp overnight. We'll shoot some guns. If it's applicable to the people that show up, we'll shoot some guns. We'll go back by the creek on the property. We'll set up some tents. We'll camp. We'll sit around a fire. We'll go back to nature. We'll talk about whatever issues you need to be a better dad with other dads there to talk to you about it.
So is that sort of like a men's retreat? Is that the idea?
For the camp, for the particular camp, yes.
Yeah.
But for the overall property is literally for everyone. But it's all community outreach on one side, and these are the programs that help make the human beings better, to give them some resources. We don't have to depend on the government to do it. We can do it. And then on the other side, we're going to teach people about firearms and professional firearms training. And the goal would be learn this over here, apply it over here, and vice versa. But what we are not doing is saying, in order for you to come and learn how to read and write or to write a resume, you have to be pro-gun. We're not doing that. Right?
Sure. It's more about human enrichment rather than training camp. Is that accurate?
Correct. It's
human enrichment. I think that is one of the most important things that anybody could be doing, because if I look at the piss poor education system that I came up in, holy crap, the amount of stuff that I had no idea how to do. I mean, writing a resume, you mentioned that, like, holy shit, the amount of people that don't know what to put on there, don't know how to manipulate it in their favor and make themselves look better. And I mean, that's just one aspect of the many things. And I think to the idea of, like, people learning how to cook for themselves, learning how to work as a team, all of these things with all of these different events could take place at your facility. And that, to me, that sounds really, really cool, to have sort of what the school system should be teaching being taught by somebody that at an early age was sort of rejected by the system. Would you agree? Am I on point there?
Yeah, you're absolutely on point, because I think the education system across the nation, unless you happen to live in an area that gets a lot of tax dollars, so they can hire a better teacher, better facilities, things like that. I think across the nation, it absolutely is it sucks. And my wife is in education, so I get to see this firsthand all the time. And then I work in the schools and go help mentor kids and things like that, so I see it as well. And I got 2 school-age children, so I'm all around it all the time. In that spirit, not only you're right, but I want to take this opportunity because you made a statement about corporate partners, and I say this with love to the Second Amendment community, but I'm going to give flowers to 2 organizations that absolutely believe in it, and I love them for it, and I thank them for it. That is Brownells and the United States Concealed Carry Association. Thank you two very much for seeing the vision, challenging me, pushing me, asking me the tough questions, getting the answers, and saying, all right. So they're the reason we're even able to start it. I want to give them their flowers. For the other organizations, I'll politely say this. Here's the thing, and I don't mean this in a, oh my God, he's attacking us kind of way, but here's the thing, man.
But attack them.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. If you are asking someone, I touch a lot of people's lives. A lot. Like, we all have different ways we reach people. I know I get some of us, and look, hats off, brother, because it's difficult to do when people are getting pages 500,000, million and a half. That stuff is not easy at all. It's a lot of work. But then there are people that do different things in different ways to reach people. I've always been, like I said, a street preacher. I've always been amongst the people. It's not abnormal to click my social media page and see me standing in front of 200 people. It's just not, because I'm always where they're at, where they are. But all that to be said, we have companies that are weighing who they want to help based off what they can gain. So I've had a lot of organizations sit in front of my face and say, absolutely, we want to work with you. And I'm like, okay, cool. I won't even charge you sponsorship dollars. Don't worry about how much money I spent on cameras. Don't worry about the marketing material I'm going to create for you. And I have a graduate degree in business and contract management. I can talk business all day long, right? And I have a small media team. So we can create the things that you need. But here's what I'm more interested in. Instead of you paying me a fee, I am more interested in, why don't you just make a charitable donation? And if you make a charitable donation, hell, I'll mark it for you for free, because I'm more worried about these kids reading and writing and these young adults getting literacy skills than I am about me getting a new widget and wadget on the wall, right? So I'm more concerned with that. And what I've had, some companies are smaller, don't get me wrong, they just can't, not going to get a yes all the time. But there are large organizations, right, that I will see, and people that are listening, do not twist my words. I will see them give a lot of money to, say, injured veterans, which you should. Matter of fact, I would say that the American populace should take some of that, let's say, weight off and donate more out of their pockets to the veterans that fought and got injured. So I'm all about supporting them, but you have to help me understand why we can't do 2 things at one time. I've watched organizations raise $300,000, $400,000 overnight. And then when I'm like, okay, but we also want to help these kids, I'll get a pat on the back when it's like, man, thanks for standing up for the Second Amendment. Man, I can't believe you took our voice into this room. Man, I can't believe that you said this. Oh, man, I can't believe that you're actually a attorney too. Man, love it. God, Second Amendment's cool. And I'm like, great. Hey, you know that $400,000? Can we get 40 of it to build a classroom in Greenwood so we can have a small classroom to bring the kids out the heat, get the people in? Can we get a couple of computers set up, right, so we can actually start educating people? Oh, man, I got to talk to the marketing division. So then I start getting the runaround. But as soon as it's, hey, will you tell people how great we are? They're fully available. There is a gun rights organization right now. And the only reason I'm not going to say their name out loud is because they'll hear about it and they know exactly who the hell I'm talking about. Have been giving me the runaround for 3 years. But every time they've called me, I've shown up for them. Every single time.
I hate it when that shit happens, dude.
And when worst. I ask for, hey, yo, help, I get the runaround for 3 years now. And when I finally had a conversation with one of their representatives down at GunCon, when I finally had a conversation, not GunCon, I apologize, the Gundies. When I finally had a conversation with one of their representatives at the Gundies, and I say, hey, dude, Like, this is how I feel about your organization. Not saying you're not doing great things for the Second Amendment. Do not get it twisted. What I am saying is, when it comes to me in particular, you guys have not owned up, not you as an individual, because you weren't there. I'm going to fix that for you. Okay. You know what? A few weeks later, I do get a call. I'm like, well, hell, he was a man of his word. But that call was, we're going to call you. The Gundies was in February, right? When the Gundies in February? So here we are in May. It's recording this, and I'm still waiting on the call. It takes you 3-4 months to call me after you've given me your rear end a kiss for 3 years. So now we're almost at 3.5 years. You won't sit down and have a conversation with me. But when you want me to tell America what you are doing to help out the gun owner, I show up. So no longer am I doing that. I'm not working with companies that will not at least acknowledge the fact that we are trying to help people. And it's crazy to me, because it's not like I'm a guy that says, you know what, John, you're a white guy. You can't read. You can't write. Don't come to me for help. I'm not here to help you. I don't say that. Absolutely, I don't say that. So
That's never been your approach.
I'm telling you that you have to, hey, you're only going to help out these people and not these people. I'm asking you to help me, but we can help all Americans, and for we can do better by them and get them equipment and an education, and we can teach them how to shoot guns. And you know what? We'll market you. We'll tell everybody what you did, right? But when you are like, hey, show up, be a black face for me, and tell people how cool we are, for we can go back to that relatability factor we mentioned earlier, for we can say to this side of America, this largest growing demographic, that look, we got one of the elders in voice-wise out here speaking about us. This is why you guys should support us. Look at this representation. And then when the cameras go off and I ask you to, okay, now can we put some teeth behind that? Can we actually help do the things that are benefiting Americans? Nah, we'll call you. So I'm not answering anymore.
So you're basically sick of being used as a marketing tool.
Exactly. And the NRA was the first organization that was horrible at it. And then all of a sudden, everybody's like, hey, you know what? Guess what? We're going to do different. We're going to do better. And you start repeating the exact same things they did.
Because it's almost like politicians have rubbed off on these groups because they're doing the exact same thing. I mean, I haven't had that exact same experience because I'm not, doing the advocacy work and community growth, but I have had plenty of brands give me the freaking runaround, and I literally just stopped calling them. There's a few companies that will not get an invite back to GunCon because they gave me the runaround the last couple years, and I'm tired of chasing people. I can imagine that you are as well. And the good thing is, for those people listening and watching, Kevin is going to be at GunCon on, I believe I have you on I can't remember which panel. It's either the next gen or the elite panel. I don't know. The names don't matter. It's a bunch of great people. And hopefully what that will do is put you in front of even more companies that are active in my circle. And I would love to see them help you grow and everybody's circle grow with this sort of project. Because I think what you're doing is one of the best things that can be done for communities in general, not just young people, not just dads, not just mom, like everybody can benefit from that strengthening of core value. Because really that's what you're doing. It's not religious. It's not political. It's about strength in humans. And holy shit, is that awesome.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, I gotta be, and I gotta say this too. It would be different, and I would almost understand better. Not saying I would, but I would almost understand better if somebody asked me, well, what risk do you have in it, in this particular project? And my response would be, I've already out of my own pocket put well over 6 figures into it. So I'm not asking you to do anything that I haven't done. I'm not asking that. I'm just saying, if you want to tell Americans you have their back and you want to use my face and my voice to convey that message, it might be an honorable thing to at least entertain a very valid conversation, right? And it's and I get it, because a lot of organizations like, well, yeah, we get people to ask us for stuff all the time. Dude, let's be honest. You get, sometimes if you're successful, you got to dump funds anyway, and you're dumping into nonprofits anyway. You're dumping them into nonprofits regardless to get that tax write-off at the end of the year.
Well, dude, look at the amount of money that got thrown at SHOT at the NSSF when a bunch of companies bailed from SHOT Show. They were like, here's $500,000. We're not going to go. The show doesn't exist this particular year, but here's a bunch of money for nothing. Arguably the NSSF has dropped the effing ball, and they're just soaking up industry dollars. And I find that really, really disheartening. And I would love to see more of these brands be aware that there are other places, more effective places, stronger places to put the almighty dollar.
Yeah, and then you get and then there's the social corporate responsibility is another discussion, but then there's also you understanding, because people often ask me, I will give this away to people. They often ask, like, hey man, how do we reach? And this is from the gun company's perspective. Hey, how do we reach? Because the marketing that we have has been kind of tailored toward the old groups, not necessarily the new ones, right? So, hey man, how do we market? And I explained to them, I said, when you have individuals that are being used to being lied to, hell, go back to the politicians that have been lying to them all their life, right? When you got individuals that are used to being lied to, they want to see that you support them before they support you. So why is it that you won't fork over any effort to support something that they can, even if they're sitting in their homes and like, you know what, I agree with that. Oh crap, Acme Tools or whoever actually supports that mission, and they've actually stood up to better people, and like it's an actionable plan. They're not just talking. Oh, well, that's where I'm going to drop my dollar.
So is that the idea of giving permission again? So for instance, let me paint this picture and tell me if I'm right. So you have a gun company, and you're saying, essentially, if you're trying to reach the Black community, let's bring in a few 2, 3, whatever amount of Black influencers, community leaders, etc. Show that you are a part of that community, be the representation, and then the community sees that as permission to support that brand. Is that accurate?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
What I'm saying is go to the mission aspect of it alone, right? So it's cool that, all right, relatability factors, humans are humans. Okay, if I look up on a screen and I see somebody that looks like me, okay, cool, right? And it's kind of still newer, if you will. All right, cool, this is awesome, but that's not the thing. The thing is, there is something happening that I've wanted to see for most of my adult life. Someone actually putting an effort in to help out with the issues in a way that we haven't seen outside of maybe a local community center. And oh my God, this happens to be powered by the gun industry? Well, that's kind of cool, right? So now if I'm going to buy widget A, I am more likely to buy widget A because that company backs a mission that I believe in, right? Look how many people, for example, and it happens all the time, look how many individuals support brands and companies because they donate to veteran outreach programs.
Yeah, it's
they'll just say, well, I'm going to buy that damn rifle just because, and they'll probably never shoot it, but they're support, which is great because they're emotionally attached to it. So if you want to reach the new demographic of people, you have to understand what they're emotionally attached to, right? And so why not? And then it's valid, it works. There's nothing wrong with donating to a vet. They need help. The government isn't doing it. You might as well do it. That's great. And then over here, there are all kind of other issues that people are facing that they need help with. So if they see that you are willing to jump in and get into a fight that they can understand, then they're more likely to say, okay, I see that this company has a good heart. The organization itself has a good heart. They're involved in good things. If I'm going to buy a widget, Zoom, Zoom, and Wham, Wham, I'll probably buy it from them. Whatever the thing.
The terminology is the key there. The Zoom, Zoom, and Wham, Wham.
You got to buy Zoom, Zooms, and Wham, Whams, man.
So I wonder if the issue at hand is the sort of need for marketing departments, and stick with me on this. It might be a little bit of a walk. So in my experience, marketing departments are a revolving door in the gun industry. And what tends to happen is when a newer marketing person comes in, they're looking to make a splash. And what they want is fast return, instant return on the funding that they push to their bosses. They want that instant return. And what becomes challenging with what you're talking about is that it's generational return. Like you can't show somebody the analytics of somebody learning how to do a resume. You can't show them the click-through rate on somebody learning how to be a better father. There's no measurable ROI on this. There's a guy goes by the name of Gary Vaynerchuk, who has a phrase he uses: what's the ROI on your mom? And the idea is that your mom is influential in your life, and your program and these things could be influential in many people's lives, but the sort of ROI is very difficult to measure, and therefore these turn and burn type people are less likely to gravitate towards it because they are looking for that speedy result. And you're talking about something that is a longer play. It's not a bad thing, but I think it's a tougher sell because of that.
Well, there's a duopoly. There's a duopoly to that. So I don't disagree with that, because that's just straight up business, right? And I tell people all the time, every product that you get from an organization or a company, I don't care if it's guns, cameras, I don't care what it is, has somebody a job attached to it, right? Every contract that is signed has somebody's job attached to it, and we have to respect that. So that's why we often tell people, like, if you are going to help me, trust me, I am going to help you, right? Like, and it might not be exactly, and sometimes it does take, my approach takes a little bit to explain, but as far as reaching individuals, you don't make it on a cover of national publications because people don't know who you are. You know what I'm saying?
Fair. That's fair.
So there is a way to do things, and then there's ownership on my behalf, right? And I own my stuff, right? For a long time, I avoided YouTube. Now, when you look at the background now, we mentioned Blackout Coffee. I want to thank Jared, man. I want to thank Tactical Toolbox. I want to thank Johnny B. I want to thank the guys over at Brownells. When we were sitting up in Iowa for a couple of days up there, that's when this conversation started about, you know what, dude, I'm running it in a lot of different circles, but I'm not maximizing what the YouTube engine and machine is. And I've ignored it for so long because I watch guys like you, I rate bet, so forth and so on. You be balling out one day and the next day they take your stuff. And I'm like, well, I'm not about to go through that. You know? So I'm like, I'm going to learn from the mistakes of others. But I understand it's a game that you have to play now, right? So voila, background, studio, the project. Now we have a land to create. We can do gun stuff. So that's what all this stuff is intentional, right? So we can create for you. And that was my ownership. And that was my responsibility. I needed to fix that, right? So I've done that. So when it comes to creating things for people and giving them a return on investment, the reason I've converted thousands, and I don't mean because I think they bought something. I'm talking about people who have never touched a gun before. I've converted well over 10,000 of them, from non-gun owners to gun owners, right? Wow. So when I know, because I'm in their face, I don't have a button to click, but I can tell you that when I throw an event, it always sells out, especially for the public, right? Because people come because I know how to reach people, right? So when they come and they see, oh, brought to you by so-and-so and so-and-so, well, those are your leads that you're looking for, right? Those are your leads, then your price point and all those things have to do the rest of the job for you. But as far as understanding the business of it, I get it. And so I try to give that balance. But on the flip side of even the duopoly, here's this. You want to help people or not? Right? Because I can absolutely create for you. I can absolutely do that. I'm sitting on this podcast with you now because you know how to contact with me, which means I know how to contact you. So if I'm even confused about something, I would have no qualms to say, hey, dude, ABC wants me to do this. This is what they're looking for. I've never crossed it before, John. You got some advice for me? You get what I'm saying? So the network is there. If there is something that you need to cross over, I'll call somebody I know that's better at it than me. So they don't really, and I say all that to say this. I understand business and fuck their excuses. So it's if you are looking to help people, let's help them and get you marketing. I want you to have the marketing. I want people to know you're involved. I want you to take advantage of capitalism and sell I want you to have supply chain issues because you can't keep up. And I can do my small part to help with that. But you can't expect to say, here's where's my camera? Here's $35 widget that we got $750 in, we're going to send you, and then we want you to spend what's the equivalent of 6,000 camera hours creating for us. Prove to us you'll do that, and then we might help you feed a family. No.
Yeah, we need to keep talking about this and find ways, because I want to help you find ways to kick doors open and bring in that cash. But I also want to give another quick shout out to our sponsors, Blackout Coffee. If you go to blackoutcoffee.com/TGC and use our code TGC, we can keep the lights on. Yeah, there's 6 or 7 lights on right now. We can keep them on. And if you use our code TGC at vertex.com, you get yourself some sweet gear, gun bags, car bags, backpacks, apparel, all of the things. You get a discount there too. So, Kev, I think we can beat the ever-living shit out of the horse of you need money to make this work. I definitely want to continue to try and lift that mission up. In the meantime, where can people connect directly with you to learn more about it, to perhaps learn from you, and just be a part of your world? How do they find you?
A couple ways. Thanks for asking. Oh, by the way, before I forget, and I'm saying this, and I know we both work with him and we're both friends with Jared, but let me tell y'all the honest guy's truth, man. I like coffee, and Blackout Coffee is the bomb.com. Let me just say that. It's just flat out good stuff, man. It's really good stuff. I've had your blend too, and it's pretty damn tasty. I'll give you that.
Seal of approval. Count it.
Right. You know,
Kevin likes it.
Yeah, I tried everything over there, and they got a good thing going. All the flavors are good. Put a lot of quality stuff, man. Go use Jon's code and get yourself some savings.
Do you have a code?
I do, but it's your show, man.
No. What is your code?
It's KD10.
There you go, KD10. If you wanna support Kevin Dixie, KD10 helps support what he's doing at blackoutcoffee.com. And buy Tenacity, because it's good coffee.
It is.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Bitter coffee, man. But it's not bitter, and I love that.
Yeah.
The way to reach me is our website is a big way, and I appreciate you asking. That is nootherchoice.com, all spelled out, one word, nootherchoice.com. And if you click on Aiming for the Truth, if you want to know about the community outreach, you can read about it there. But while you're there, you can also take advantage of the awesome firearm classes that we have. You can take advantage of some of the merch we have, the swag we have, like the Harriet would have smacked the shit out of you apparel. My ancestors paid the price. I'm just a receipt. We have Don't Make Me Act Uncivil about my civil rights. I think that's a really good one. So all kind of different stuff over there. Shop to your heart's content. We got accessories for your pew pew sticks and boom boom and some wham whams and zoom zooms. We got all the things. If you are also looking, stay attached to the website too. If you're looking to become a firearm instructor, I am a firearms counselor. So if you're looking to be an instructor, I can be the guy to coach and help navigate you through those waters and get you certified. If you are looking to make a donation, which we would greatly appreciate, I'm a really nice guy, I promise you. You can go to gofundme.com/aiming for the truth, aiming for the truth, and you can read about our mission there. Another great place to find tidbits of it and some reels and more short form entertainment is our Instagram page. That's The Real on Instagram _NOC for No Other Choice. So The Real _NOC. I even got a couple of videos pinned to the top to give you a couple of examples of what we do. And I encourage you, email us info@nootherchoice.com. If you want to push back, ask some questions, give advice. If you are able to create a thing, we're looking to do several things right now. We need about 20 loads of gravel. That's a good estimate. Each load of gravel down here right now, to let you guys know that I've done it, is either number 4, number 57, or half inch. Either one. See, I know gravels, right? Those things are running about $875 per truckload. We need 20 of them.
Goodness gracious.
Just to get the driveway graveled all the way into the property, which is a cost savings above asphalt. So we've done all the research trying to get everything saved up. We also need a minimum. To do a minimum, we can make this work. Classroom, we're looking at $50,000. The shipping container to even store things there, so we can start having equipment there, generators and stuff, and axes and picks and stuff that we need to do the manual labor on the land, is oddly enough, because we need a side opening one for many reasons. Oddly enough, that thing's even running around $6,000. No matter how cheap I try to find it or what kind of deals I try to get.
The prices went up because everybody's trying to build a house out of the damn thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. Jesus, man. But those are the things that we're trying to do. That's the way you stay in touch. I look forward to engaging, interacting. I'm a really nice person, despite what social media says.
That's funny. I love what you're doing, man. I'm glad that I have gotten a chance to get to know you a little bit better. I'm excited to have the people at GunCon get to know you a little bit better, and I cannot wait to see you continue to grow this outreach empire that you're working on. I think it's fantastic. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your time. And of course, everybody out there listening, watching, etc., thank you for doing that. Thank you for your time. Support our sponsors, support Kevin, and we will see you next time.